As a reminder, these are your meeting controls for Teams. Please keep yourself muted until it's time for discussion. Keep in mind that this meeting is being recorded. Feel free to put any questions or thoughts in the chat as we go through the presentation. Next slide. We have some guest speakers joining us today. We'll be hearing about two other DHCD programs, the Community Business Launch and Community Development Block Grants, as well as what it looks like for a community to utilize and participate in those programs. At the end, we'll have time for questions and reflection and touch on what's coming up next. Next slide. This is your VMS team. Courtney Maley is the program manager. Blair is the PA for the Northern region. Kyle Meyer is the PA for the Eastern region. Zachary Whitlow for Southern Virginia. Kelvin Whitehurst is the Central Shenandoah region, and I work with the Southwest region communities. Next slide. We'll be doing a quick icebreaker to see who's here today. Please come off mute and tell us your name, what community you're in, and one goal for your EMS program in 2026. Who wants to go first?
I'm Sarah Jane Wyatt from Urbana, Virginia, and our goal for 2026 is to finally hire an executive director.
Executive director, staff, that's very exciting.
Well, I'm Lynette Alston. I'm in Southampton County, Virginia, and working with Cortland, Virginia, to help revitalize our downtown area.
Excellent, thank you. Who else would
I'm
like
Lauren
to share?
Riddell. I work with the local economic development, and our goal is to not only help Cortland reinstate a Main Street program, but to help Franklin revitalize their program that has, in the past few years, just kind of gone away.
Oh, that's great. I love the idea of helping out your neighbor communities.
Hi, I'm Mary Zirkle, Town of Bedford. We're going to be looking forward to implementing a downtown strategy that we received. So that's our big plan, is to do some implementation this year and also participate in booms.
Oh, the booms is very exciting. I think you'll like that. Thank you, Mary.
Hi, I'm Joseph Carter Jr. I'm with the city of Franklin, Virginia. And one of our goals is, like mentioned earlier, we would like to get reinstated or be participating in the Virginia Main Street program again.
Oh, excellent. Well, we're glad you're here. Anyone else? We got time for a few more folks to share.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kimberly Martin. I'm the Special Projects Coordinator for the town of Lawrenceville. And our town is also participating in the Booms Tracker project this year.
Awesome. The Booms Tracker has been a very impactful project for these communities.
Thank you.
Good morning. This is Phil Muscovy, town manager with the town of Crew. And we have so many goals, but one I'll mention is we want to build up our Main Street organization and get the 501c3 status and all that done.
Awesome. That's a great step to be taking this year. Do we have one or two more folks?
Yeah, Austin Mitchell from Amelia County, and we're also participating in the Booms project to help with the village area here, getting that established.
Awesome, thank you. All right, one or two more people, and then we'll move on. Okay, hearing none, feel free to put in the chat if you would like to answer and let us know what you're working on this next year. Next slide, please. I'm going to hand it over to Blair to introduce our next two speakers.
Thank you, Amy. We're so excited to welcome our guest speaker, Greg Beam, Assistant Town Manager of the Town of Mount Jackson. Greg joined Mount Jackson in early 2024. I hope I have the timeline correct, Greg, so you can correct me if I'm incorrect. And with his enthusiasm for Main Street, he quickly helped Mount Jackson become an exploring Main Street community. Through today's presentation, you'll hear how Mount Jackson has successfully leveraged DHCD's community business launch to promote business startups and fill vacant storefronts. And while Community Business Launch, or CBL, is not a Virginia Main Street grant, it's a wonderful opportunity that many of our communities take advantage of. And after Greg's presentation, we'll hear from Jessica Hartness, Economic Development Program Administrator here at DHCD, and she'll share some more specifics about CBL, including eligibility information and the application timeline. Please note that we have time set aside for questions after both Greg and Jessica present. So Greg, go ahead and take it away.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Thanks for allowing me to share some thoughts with you this morning. I have to stick to my notes because otherwise I ramble, and so I share with the team that we don't need this to be like a 2-day session. So I have all the forms, the docs, all of the things that we used, our marketing. I'd certainly share all of that with you. You reach out if you're interested, and we're certainly glad to share. So I guess we can go to our next slide here. Let's skip that one. That's our map of, we know where we are. All right, so this one, small town, big hustle. All right, so Mount Jackson, for those of you who don't know, is about 2,100 people here, located here in Shenandoah County. We're one of 5 small towns along Route 11, and we are on the quieter end of the county down here near Newmarket. Olivia Hilton, our town manager, and I are part of the small team here with some of our other folks. But like many of you, we wear all those hats. One of the council's goals for us was to bring business back to Main Street and to not just be the permit people and to become more of the partners in the community. We wanted to help pull down walls, and we're certainly, neither of us are traditional government types. We definitely try to resist leaning too much into that so that we are a little bit more approachable at times, and we are in a smaller town, and it's what works for our community. We wanted to grow from the inside out, and the DHCD's CBL program was that perfect fuel for that fire for us and what we wanted to do. Next slide. With this, and you'll see one of these photos, there's Olivia, and she's sitting with Mo, her dog, which we refer to as our POFIS manager. So I don't know, anyways, that anyone can use that. That's a freebie there. So we didn't start with a formal application when we received the funds and we were kind of throwing this out to the world. We just wanted to start with coffee. We put out a call to anyone who's kind of been kicking around the idea of starting a business. And our goal is always to remember to just be human and to have that kind of first chat and talk about what their dreams are. Have they ever thought about opening a business? Tell us about that business. Just make it human and keep it simple. And that broke the ice. We told everyone right away, it's 100% okay if you don't have it all worked out. That's what the 8-week training will be for, is to answer those questions and to fill in the blanks. After that first meeting, we usually share the schedule and encourage them to get the dates on their calendar, because that was key, is commit to these dates. That's kind of the first thing, right? We wanted them to feel like this was the journey we're all taking together. It's not an exam that they have to pass. We opted to have our sessions here in Town Hall for convenience, but certainly any space that's accessible and works for you and your community and kind of is the vibe of your town and where you're going, that's certainly what you should do. Next slide. Kind of the secret sauce, right? So we know we are working with the folks that are those 40-hour week folks. You know, they are trying to become these entrepreneurs outside of whatever that 40-hour week job is. And that really was the heartbeat of MJ5. And that's what we called the program, if you pick that up, was we called it the Mount Jackson 5, because we thought at least if we can hit 5 folks in this program, then that's good. And we thought it was kind of catchy and kind of weird. And we thought, hey, that has a little bit of a ring to it. And so we just put out a call for the Mount Jackson 5. And at first, folks were like, what is that? What are you talking about? And that's the hook, right? So that was our every Tuesday. We would meet at 5:30 and we shared a family style meal. We provided food and childcare options because we wanted to pull down those hurdles. On any given night, you might have found the director of tourism or the director of the Chamber of Commerce for the county or someone else filling a plate and just chatting. We invited some of the key folks that may be helpful contacts, but maybe weren't already going to be scheduled as one of our presenters for the upcoming weeks or sessions. We worked to infuse a few of those folks and those other contacts into the mix and into those conversations. So that family style dinner was really important, right? Because you have folks coming together, they're trying to make that transition between that work day, and then they're going to sit in this presentation that they don't know quite what they're doing. So it allowed transition time. It also allowed time for them to casually get to know each other a little bit more. Like it was like, pass the mashed potatoes. I don't like this chicken. Where's the, mustard, whatever. So all of that becomes human, right? That becomes neighbors, and that becomes where we start. And we found that was really important versus just throwing folks into a conference room and hitting go. So the meal was really important. And so we definitely don't shy away from food. So the one thing that we believe is that success doesn't always end in a pitch. Yes, the goal is for everyone to open their business after this program and live happily ever after. But honestly, sometimes the ever after takes a bit longer to get to. And we want to make sure that we've provided enough opportunities for folks to gather information, to do the hard work of that self-assessment of where am I now? Is this honestly the right time for me and my family, or should I hold off a bit and then I'll be ready? We'd rather folks wait and be more prepared than to launch and fail. We had folks who went through the program in that first round but decided not to pitch at the end, and that's a win too, right? Because they were self-aware and they learned where they were in the process and what they still needed to work on. Some of those folks will do what they need to do and will eventually open, or they'll remain cheerleaders, ambassadors, customers for our businesses in downtown as a whole. We're focused on long-term retention. We want them to launch when they're ready to stay successful for years, not just for months. Slide. It takes a village. 16 facilitators over 2 rounds, ongoing staff support, regional partners. It's more than recruitment. It's the folks who didn't sometimes pitch, right, on that pitch night that still showed up to support their peers. It's the Mount Jackson 5 friends participating when we call on them in community events and gatherings and getting out there, letting us help to make those introductions for them along the way. We often say anyone can open a business, right? It's that retention piece that's the trick. Knowing when to ask for help and also who. Having all of those supports is something that we really believe about, and creating as much of that as possible so that, at the end of the day, if Olivia and I are abducted by aliens and we're just kind of zapped out of here, these businesses, long game, will still have all of these supports and these folks and these friends around them, with or without us sitting in town hall. And so that's really the goal, is thinking forward about them. So it's about keeping them on track, helping them continue to thrive and flourish. It's about authentic human connections, not just the reports and the tracking. No one wants to hear me say that out loud, but it's about being human and being like, okay, we don't have that. Let's get it. Let's work on that. We will figure it out, right? And I've always believed that folks will stay with you longer, right? If you are human and you are honest and you get it, right? You're just empathetic to sometimes life is happening. So just being in check with that. So let's go to the next slide. And so some of those photos there had just been that I'd showed were some of the moments and some of the other things. This is a Mount Jackson 5 by the numbers. It's really quick. We've had 15 participants total, over 125,000 in funds awarded out. That should be 16 weeks really of education over two sessions, 2 years. 11 businesses will be launched. Over 65K in the town contributions, our population, 16 facilitators, right? And that's not counting all those other folks that just drop in for the mashed potatoes and then peel out. Those are the official, they're on our schedule. And then 7 vacant storefronts. All right, next slide. How am I doing on time? All right. Our first round, round 1, we were awarded $50,000 and we launched 4 district businesses. And those aren't just shops, they're destinations that brought some fresh energy to downtown and to Mount Jackson. The pitch night was the big finale, but because of those dinners, the judges felt more like mentors to these folks. One of our participants shared later that this grant was the cherry on top, but the process is what gave them the confidence to sign the lease. They realized they weren't just opening a shop, they were joining a downtown family that they already knew and they knew supported them. And that's what's really key. Next slide. This is some of the photos of some of those initial businesses, Valley Trail Pike and Run. They went through a couple of things where there would be Valley Pike for a second. And those 2 guys, that's Wheelie Nelson in between them. Wheelie Nelson. Anyways, that's their new mascot this year. But Wild Child Menagerie Museum and Menagerie, and that's provided childcare for our community, which an additional option. Hero's Journey is the HJ there. That's a game and card shop in downtown. And then Jillian's Farmstead Kitchen, she existed as a food truck before, but then wanted to expand. And so this is her first brick and mortar in our community. And I think Jillian will continue to expand even more. So, so we're excited about that. And I definitely expand more because I eat a lot of her food. All right, let's move it on. The, flying high in the nest. Let's roll on. Yep, that's the slide. So success showed us a new challenge, right? So one thing that we learned is that we needed smaller, affordable, and that's me saying wrap it up. All right, the affordable commercial spaces. And also not everyone was ready to jump from 0 to full-fledged independent brick and mortar. So for round 2, we requested our funding for $75,000 to create MJ5 The Nest, which we're partnering with a property owner here to transform a vacant historic hardware store into a new incubator space. While 3 of our entrepreneurs in this round 2 are ready to transition into independent spaces, not all were. The Nest is going to house about 5 to 10 new businesses with shared amenities. It's designed to help folks get off the ground, shared space with the town as the landlord for 12 to 24 months before they graduate into more independent storefronts, or perhaps they stay or they partner or their dreams evolve. They aren't just sharing a roof, they're sharing responsibilities and cross-promoting each other. Next slide. And this just shows some of our businesses in this round 2, and some of these folks will. Valley Soaps, which is center there in the bottom. She's already open. She opened. She was ready to roll, and so she's making soap, doing her thing. Brody up at the top there is the tattoo artist, and his building is getting flipped, and so he is on his way. Ryan is a woodworker. He's already doing his thing. They're all already moving, and they're excited. So we see by spring, it'll all be off the ground. Let's move on, and I'm going to wrap it up. And so that's kind of our result. The numbers are real. We're looking at over 300,000 investment, and it'll be roughly 20-ish new jobs if you count all of those folks. But the real result is seeing those 4 lease signs come down. We've traded some of our vacant downtown spaces into a hub that's more innovative and collaborative. We've learned that a small town doesn't need a huge department store to make an impact. You just need to be approachable. You need to listen to your neighbors in your community and be willing to pull down some of those hurdles, right? Get rid of those. We're not just, we need to be that support crew. And the entrepreneurs are the ones doing the heavy lifting to build the future of our towns. So we're very thankful for DHCD and for these funds, because it has changed lives. As cheesy as that sounds, it truly has. And we'd welcome you to Mount Jackson anytime, and I'll take you around to these shops and introduce you to all these folks. So thanks so much, and that's our story.
Thanks, Greg. Okay, we're going to pass it off to Jessica now to talk more about the program.
Greg, thank you so much for teeing that up for me. Gosh, every time I hear a presentation by a community who's participated in Community Business Launch, I just want to say, can you just do my presentation? Yours is so exciting, but also just, like you said, it takes a family. And I think that truly is the way to to look at CBL if you do it for your community. So after hearing Greg, everyone in here is probably like, how do we do that? So I'm going to give you guys, oh, I see a raised hand, or is that a high five? Great job, Greg.
Oh, thank you.
I'm going to give kind of like a high level overview of the program as a whole. And then, of course, if anyone wants to reach out to me after the fact or ask questions after the presentation, I'm happy to answer them. But Community Business Launch started in 2015. It's hard to believe it's been around for 10 years at this point. But essentially, it's a place-based entrepreneurial development strategy that's focused on filling a critical need or gap in the community's market by filling a concentration of vacancies, reactivating white elephant buildings, or underutilized properties with expansion and startup ventures. Local community business launch programs train entrepreneurs and creatives with best practices in business planning and operations. And the training, again, culminates in a group of finalists pitching their business ideas to a panel of judges, with those winners receiving reimbursable grant funds to kickstart their business adventure. Next slide. So here's some of the highlights. If you're applying for a CBL grant, you can get up to $100,000. The amount of the award or the amount of your request has to be matched at different levels. So for $25,000 or for $50,000 or less, the match is 25%. For 50 to 75, it's 50%, and for 75,000 to $100,000, it would be a 1-to-1 match. There are many different types of entities that are eligible to apply. We've had localities like Mount Jackson, but also economic and industrial development authorities, Main Street organizations, obviously, and chambers of commerce. Basically, if you are a organization that works with small businesses, you're probably eligible to apply. Again, the match is staggered based on the request size. And the main thing is that you have to select a target area. So ideally no larger than 1 square mile. Things that would be ineligible would be like filling a new building or speculative building, an antique mall with no real like retail market strategy, or the continued development of those business ventures inside. Creation of a whole new space, so we don't do new builds, containers, mini sheds, food truck roundups, when there are brick and mortar spaces available. So if you have a historic downtown with vacancies, but you want to create a food truck roundup, that's probably not the best place to start. And then programming or incentivizing of existing co-working spaces. It wasn't until actually last year that we opened it up to do kind of those infill kind of projects, which are activating alleyways, parking lots, or multi-tenant spaces like the Nest that Mount Jackson is working on. Next slide. And here are some of the highlights from this last year. So in 2025, which was the last completed grant cycle, we awarded 3 different communities funding to do CBL, Mount Jackson being one of them. Lynchburg, Virginia, that was their 3rd round of CBL to complete, and then Hillsville, Virginia. And you can see some of the investment numbers. Again, these are still like reporting because many of these businesses are just opening as of December of 2025. So really going to see the largest impact probably by the end of this current year, 2026. But super impressed with everyone. Hillsville is a pretty small community out in Southern Virginia, kind of near Galax. And for a community of their size, they had 15 entrepreneurs completing the program. They created 15 jobs and expanded 5 businesses and filled 1 building. And then Lynchburg, in addition, had 15 entrepreneurs complete the program, created 12 jobs so far, 5 businesses created or expanded, and 5 buildings filled. And then, of course, Greg mentioned some of the outcomes for Jackson, but even the ones I have there in the report are less than what they currently are because I made this report in July of 2025. So I think that's my last slide maybe, but no. So programmatic changes for 2027. Again, we are going to continue to allow targeted areas to include vacant lots, alleys, infill, and multi-tenant retail incubator spaces like the Nest that they are making in downtown Mount Jackson. The one major change for this year is that we are moving the open date of applications probably to April or May. We usually open it up around the same time as the Virginia Main Street grants, but we decided to stagger it a little bit this year. So if you have a project that you're thinking about or want to work through, I'm happy to schedule a time to meet with you and talk through what you think might be best for your community. So thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Do we have any questions for Greg or Jessica about CBL? Okay, I'm not seeing any. I think you guys covered it perfectly. If you do have any questions, their contact information is there and will be sent out after this webinar. All right, next slide. Okay, we're going to pass it off to our last speaker, Kelly Cherapich. Kelly is the Planning Grant Specialist for the CDBG program. Kelly, please take it away.
Absolutely. So, hello, everybody. I know a lot of people on this call. A lot of our partners know me because we've had a planning grant in the past. But I'm going to talk today about the CDBG planning grant specifically for the Business District Revitalization Program, aka the Downtown Program for planning grants. So these grants, they have to be awarded to localities. So if it's the town of Possumville and the town of Possumville has its Main Street program, the town of Possumville would be the applicant and the awardee, but Possumville Main Street Association definitely would be partnering with the locality. We really want to see during a planning grant, all of these stakeholder groups partner together. So not only do planning grants pay for the cost estimates and all the things to apply for a construction CDBG grant, but it really helps, depending on your consultants and stakeholder groups, really helps bring those people together and do a visioning. We must do a CDBG planning grant before you can apply for a construction grant. And the reason for that is business district revitalization projects with CDBG funding, anybody that has ever managed a federal grant knows that the amount of paperwork and the amount of rules and regulations and all that great stuff, it's a lot to do and it's a lot to undertake. So we want to make sure that we start our localities out with a planning grant first so we can get them on the right track and set them up for success. And that also helps some of our localities that have planning grants have never worked with CDBG or DHCD actually, and they would benefit from like just knowing how CAMS works and how all this stuff works. So for the 2025 program year, and I apologize, we have not finalized our 2026 program guidelines or application date, but for the 2025 program year, a locality was able to apply for up to $75,000 for a planning grant, and that money can go towards hiring a consultant to do renderings, to do community outreach, engagement, design, all of that, so that was what we did for 2025. I would anticipate it being probably the same for 2026. But if anybody wants that information or wants that information as soon as it comes out, feel free to email me and I will email you our program guidelines as soon as it comes out. Next slide, please. All right. After you complete the planning grant process, which takes between a year to 2 years, you can then apply for a project grant, also known as an implementation or construction grant. So this is where, so a planning grant, I know it sounds, you're like, that's pretty self-evident and self-explanatory. A planning grant, we can't use any of that money for construction. It really is just for planning. A project grant is where we actually, bricks and sticks, start doing construction. For the 2025 CDBG program year, locality is eligible to apply for up to $1,250,000. And the main component has to be building facades. And that is because CDBG money comes from HUD. It's federal money funneled through the state, with DHCD being the state entity responsible for this. So HUD defines blight as building facades. We can do other ancillary and complementary activities such as streetscapes, pocket park, murals, that kind of thing. But building facades have to be the main component. So during your planning grant, you would be helping to determine those blighted buildings and helping to determine what the locality's definition of blight is. So that's what's really great about building facades are the main component. However, HUD said, hey, they have to be the main component, but you all get to decide what blight is. And some examples of blight that we have seen in applications have been, you know, cracked fascias, peeling paint, broken windows, general unkempt appearance outside the building, blah, blah, blah. And the picture we have here is one of our success stories. That is downtown Withville. You know it's Withville because A, it says Withville, but B, there's a big pencil. So you'll always know it's Withville from the big pencil. And they were awarded implementation CDBG BDR project, I believe back in 2019. And they're going great today. So next slide, please. All right, so I'm going to spotlight, and BT Fitzpatrick is on the call today. Spotlight one of our more recent success stories. I like to call it a success story in progress, and it is the town of Boones Mill, which is about 30 minutes from Roanoke as the crow flies, and they started out with a planning grant, was awarded in 2021, and we had less money for 2021, so they only got $50,000, and they were able to do a lot of great things with their $50,000. They were able to do community engagement, procure a consultant to help with the community engagement, and also to help with the design, cost for design, and helping with the application. They had initially applied for a project grant in 2023. We ran out of money in 2023, so they came back. They said, we are not going to let that deter us. BT, if you've ever met BT, he is a bulldog. He said, we're coming back in 2024. They applied and they are awarded a construction grant for $860,000, give or take. And if you can see, we have two of the main buildings in Boones Mill, and then our design renderings from the A&E consultant that will be completed after we finish construction. And hopefully we will be able to start construction very soon. But this is what you can do with a CDBG planning grant that would then turn into a construction grant. And also this is a funding source that works. We want you to be working with Virginia Main Street. So I like to say that CDBG money is kind of the nerdy money. It's the nerdy money, the not fun money. Virginia Main Street, they have what we don't have a lot of times. They have the experience and technical assistance to be able to help you all. We can build the buildings, but they're going to be able to tell you how to fill them, how to get people downtown, the programming, how to work with your Main Street Association. So you really should be taking both CDBG and Virginia Main Street, their technical assistance, and combining it together. So, yep, that's all I have. Next slide, please. Yeah, any questions? Also, I'm going to plug it for myself. If you are at a locality and you are interested in something other than BDR downtown, CDBG not only does BDR in downtown, so feel free to email me.
Thank you, Kelly. Any questions about CDBG? Okay, we have one question from Joseph.
Yes, sorry, I took my camera off there. Yes, BDR and downtown projects are pretty well analogous. The one caveat, I'm glad you said that, so I could point it out. So going back to the town of Possumville example, let's say that there's a Main Street area and then we have a business district. The town, they could do a planning grant for both of them, but they would have to pick which one of those they would want to use the construction money for. Like they could do a planning grant for both of those, but if they wanted to do a construction grant, they would need to pick one of those two areas, because if not, and they applied for, hey, this area and hey, this area, they would be competing amongst themselves, if that makes sense. But BDR and downtown, for all intensive purposes, is pretty well analogous. All right, and Kelvin asked, is there a match involved with CDBG grants? No, there is not a match. However, there's not a required match, but if you submit an application and let's say it's going to cost $2 million if we can only provide $1.25 million, you would have to say how you're going to come up with that other, what's that, $750,000. So there's no match, but do realize, like, if you go above the cost limits, we are going to ask, how are you going to come up with those additional funding?
Kelly, can y'all hear me now?
Yes.
This is BT Fitzpatrick with Boone's Mill. Sorry, I was trying to speak earlier and I think I was muted. Thank you for that wonderful shout out, Kelly. We're excited about our project in Boone's Mill. And for the rest of you on the call, those of you who know Kelly and those of you who may not know Kelly, she was a wonderful representative to have during our application process, extremely helpful. And we're grateful for all of your assistance and guidance during that process, Kelly. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, BT. And I don't want to just trade compliments back and forth, but BT did exactly what we wanted to see in a planning grant. He reached out, and if he had a question, he'd call me, he'd email me. So if you all are interested in doing a downtown project, any of y'all, and you get a downtown planning grant, BDR planning grant, like I said, analogous, feel free to reach out to DHCD as much as possible, because that helps you all, that helps us, and then we get something great like Boone's Mill with BT. So
I was going to say that too, Jessica. Kelly received a customer service award this year. So definitely reach out to her. She is a great resource for all things CDBG.
thank you
All
all.
right. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Greg and Jessica as well. Next slide, please. Oh, we have one more question before we move on.
One more question. Let's see, Joseph Carter, if you want to put your email address in the chat, we have not published them yet for this year, but I keep a little sticky note on my computer for as soon as we publish them, a list of people that I want to send them out to. And that's for anybody. If anybody wants to know that, just put your email address in the chat or feel free to email me and I will make sure I add you to the sticky note list.
All right, next slide. We're going to do a little reflection here. What strengths, assets, or past successes in your community could you build on to pursue opportunities like these? Or if you've already done these programs, what made it successful for you? So feel free to come off mute or you can type it into the chat. Quiet today. We can start calling on people. Does anyone want to share if they're interested in these programs, what you could build on for these programs to work well?
I will throw out there in my opportunities to work on CBL, Danville is probably not on the call, but they kind of follow the route of a CDBG planning implementation and then CBL. They've done 2 rounds of CBL. And there was kind of a corridor off their Main Street district that really needed some facade improvements. And they were able to get CDBG to improve those buildings and then use CBL to kind of create a pipeline of businesses that could locate in those spaces. So just throwing it out there.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, we have one in the chat. Our locality has had a community business launch that they facilitated entirely through a separate program. I think we can work on our relationship with them and introduce them to your version because there's a greater chance for collaboration and financial reward than their program currently utilizes. That's great. And what DCI, what community is that? Christiansburg. Oh, great. Thank you for sharing. All right, anyone else before we move on? Right, seeing none. Well, just remember this is something you can think about as you think about your goals for 2026. Next slide, please. Okay, we have a few reminders before we close out this webinar. If you have not yet completed the Exploring Main Street annual report, please do so as soon as possible. These are due by January 31st. Submitting it is a requirement for remaining an active EMS community and will affect your grant applications. Following that, the Virginia Main Street grant applications open on February 2nd. You can view the How to Apply recording by following this link, as well as take a look at our other upcoming trainings and events. From the goals stated earlier, it sounds like a few of those could be community vitality grant projects, so definitely reach out to your program administrator if you want to explore that further. Next slide. And that brings us to the end. Thank you all for joining us today. Thank you to all of our speakers, sharing about your programs and what's working well. Again, the slides and recording will be sent in a follow-up email, so you'll have all the links and contact information.